Okay, we're going live. Everybody's on board? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome everyone to the August 13th business meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees. Call the meeting to order at, let's call it 7:47. Let's begin with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, once again, those of you who've chosen to come out this evening, thanks for attending. Those of you watching at home, this is going to be a busy evening. The entire board is present. We can conduct business as necessary, and we'll begin with additions, deletions to the agenda. All right, if no additions, deletions offered, those in, I need a motion to approve the agenda. So moved. Okay, moved by Clerk Ranka, seconded, give it to Trustee Posiask. Those in favor of approving the agenda as published, please signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? None offered. The agenda is approved. At this time, we have no hearings scheduled, so open up to public comment, limited to tonight's action items only. We have 12 action items. Certainly somebody has nothing? All right, with none offered, we will then move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Treasurer.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda 15-001, which includes the minutes of the March 23rd, 2015 regular meeting, the check registers dated A, March 31st, 2015, B, dated April 1st, 2015, and C, dated April 10th, 2015. And third, the Alliance of Downriver Watersheds Bylaws Amendment.
Support.
Okay, moved by Treasurer Van House, seconded by Trustee Budney. Any comments among the board on the consent agenda? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? None offered, the consent agenda is approved. With that, we'll move into action items. It's going to be, just by the luck of the draw, it's going to be mostly my show tonight. So we'll start with where we left off last time. I move the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees continue to utilize the consulting services of Mr. Timothy O'Donnell, of Michigan Association of Assessing Officers, as professional assessor for the real and personal properties of Grosse Ile Township.
Second.
Okay, moved by Supervisor, second by Trustee Posiask. Basically, the statutory background, MCL 4161, state law permits townships to utilize the services of professional assessors if the supervisor is not certified at the proper level. This is the old level 3. Not a lot of those in the state, but anyway, Mr. O'Donnell is certified at this level for the values of the township and has served in this capacity since 1982. Further information, his salary for the next township fiscal year would be $34,000, represents about a 2% increase over last year. Any discussion among the board? Mr. Budney.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Question. The contract, we got it rather late today, but in looking at it, I noticed there weren't any signatures by Mr. O'Donnell. Has he even seen the contract, or has this negotiation actually happened with him?
It's the same as last year's contract. So,
yeah,
and I know that's not your point.
My point is, has any of this been discussed with Mr. O'Donnell?
It has, yes.
It has.
I'm looking back on when I cleaned up some of the verbiage in last year's contract. Just for example, it had only said ECF, and I put in the full text, economic condition factor, so that's just the way I like documents to look. And I know he had been involved in that because I asked him what ECF stood for. So he is aware of the scope of this agreement.
And did he ask for the raise?
No. Come on, he did not come and say, Brian, I'm not sticking around if I don't get 2%. No, he did not do that.
Did he even come around, or did we go to him and basically say, hey, here's the new contract. And what I'm getting at is, with this consultant, we don't treat him like a consultant. We treat him like an employee. And I don't think that's proper. Now, I think Tim's the right guy for the job. I mean, he does a good job for us. But why we don't treat him like other consultants, I don't know. I mean, are we going to be giving 2% increases to all our consultants just because? That's my question. Because my whole problem with this is it's done in such an unbusinesslike manner, and we are responsible to the residents of this township to do things right. And in this case, we do it all backwards, and I just don't understand why we have to do that.
I'm going to, and pardon my populism approach on this, if it ain't busted, don't fix it. We have the best assessor in the state. We have the best assessed community in the state, and they're not by my standards, but by state standards. Why would we want to alter the course of this ship?
Oh, well, we wouldn't, so why are we giving them a raise? That's altering the course of the ship, and it's the way we do it.
Now, the course has been, we've given him a raise commensurate with the non-union employees since I've been here anyway. So that has been, and it's worked. Now, I can get poorer assessors for more money, or I can keep Mr. O'Donnell on as essentially a family member.
And I get, my only point is, the way we go about this is just, to me, ludicrous. The person I have no problem with, having him as the assessor I have no problem with. Negotiating with him I would have no problem with, but we don't do it. And I just don't understand why we don't do it. I don't think it's proper for us to do that, but I just want to get that out.
I will take some umbrage with your use of the term ludicrous. It works. And again, we have the best assessed community in the state. So maybe it's not in somebody's playbook the way we should be dealing with all of our consultants, all of our outside help, but it's worked, it continues to work, and hopefully it will continue to work. So, but your position is noted.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the board?
No, I'd just like to say, yeah, Jim, obviously I think you bring up a very valid point. In this case, you're right, we don't treat him like a consultant, we treat him like an employee. And I think we get the benefit of that based on not paying his fringes and paying a lot of what we pay for a full-time employee. In this case, I see that the 2% is basically the same as the rest of the non-union employees, and I see it earned in this case. So I don't have a problem with the way we're treating this case.
Thank you, Clerk Ranka. Other comments from the board? All right, with none offered, those in favor of, that's the original motion, approving the continued relationship with Mr. Tim O'Donnell as the township's assessor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Which moves me to action item number 2. Action item number 2, I propose the Grosse Township Board of Trustees adjust the non-union employees' wages for the fiscal year 2015-16 in accordance with the proposed management wage adjustment chart dated March 31st, 2015, which includes a 2% cost of living increase, an $8,613.51 adjustment for the fire chief, and a $2,500 adjustment for the fire marshal.
Support.
Okay, moved by supervisor, seconded by Treasurer Van Oss. Oh, gosh, I may be asking the manager to some of the details, but I'll give you the big ones. The adjustment for the fire chief, it was numerous discussions. I look at police and fire as equal parts of public safety. The fire chief had been slightly below the police chief, but again, I think it's a 50-50 public safety team. Again, we're the safest community in the state of Michigan, so we're over population of 10,000. It's hard to argue with success. The police and fire, unlike some communities where they have, I won't say an adversarial, but maybe a competitive relationship, our police and fire work as a team. I've had both the privilege and curse of watching them acted when it was one of my neighbors who was brought back essentially from the dead by this team. And hopefully none of you will ever have to see him in action, but I know some of you will. And again, it's the 50-50 team, and I know I can count on either of those chiefs to stand up anytime. The fire marshal had been, I would say, underpaid for some time, and there are communities that are looking for fire chiefs and fire marshals, and Rusty would be an easy pick. And unless we can compensate him competitively, gosh, there are some situations he would just be foolish not to move over to another community and do what he's doing for them, what he's doing for us. So those are the big ones. The 2%, again, it's a cost, it's not a pay raise, it's a cost of living increase. And we have done it consistently when cost of living was justified. Mr. Bundy? Thank you.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but since you asked, along with that, I think we should, I don't know if we need to amend the motion or not, but there was a $2,500 increase for Brandy Boyd also. I mean, going right along with that, I don't know whether you need to put that in there or not.
That was part of her signing contract, was it not? That she would get.
So we don't have to say that separately, okay? Okay, and my only real question is really how did you arrive at the 2% cost of living increase? Because the cost of living increase was 1.05 at our budget meeting. I understand we're giving it 2%, that's what's in the budget, but I'm not sure it's all a cost of living increase. I mean, is that just what we're calling it?
Good evening, everyone. The township regulations account for a couple different ways that there are increases in pay. And the one that included the market adjustments was done by reviewing those positions, the market, along with the employee, the township supervisor, and the fire commission liaison, Trustee Melvesta. And the other provision is that the board, prior to the fiscal year, has the ability to establish a cost of living percentage. And that 2% cost of living percentage was what was budgeted. The actual regional cost of living was 1.05 or 1.05. Yeah. So there is a difference between that region and the number that was put in the budget, but falls under that category of the cost of living.
My question is, how did you arrive at it? Not what it is. I know what it is. Okay. How did you arrive at it?
And the actual 2% increase that was put into this budget, part of it is the same that was afforded to the police department union in their contract.
All right, so it's more of a match than a real... Okay.
Realistically, that is part of it, yes, sir.
Okay. Just the cost of living, it seems like it's two things added in there, not just the cost. But okay, that's all I wanted to know. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Green. Other questions, comments from the board?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor.
Ms. Smith.
I wasn't part of the budget meetings this year because I was endeavoring on something else, but I've said this every single year that I've been up here. I'm not opposed to giving raises, and certainly you gentlemen were in those budget meetings and were able to make it happen, which obviously they're deserving of. But I'm going to say it again for the third time in the third year, is I'd rather see this be paid out in a year-end bonus as opposed to being added to their salary. Because then it just compounds everything else that the township and the taxpayers have to pay. I think it just makes sense and it should be considered. I know every year that I've said that, it was, okay, yeah, we'll consider it, and it's never been considered. So maybe for next year, we can actually do it.
Well, I mean, we did have this conversation, and I seriously consider it, and we look at when our employees reach retirement, their retirement is going to be based on their final average earnings, so every increase affects that final average earnings. That's what they get to live on for the rest of their lives. So to leave them at a base salary based on 1999 or 2009 or 2019, pick a year, pay them an addendum as a bonus, but leave their final average earnings based on something, a pay scale that expired 20, 25 years previously, they'd all be unionized and we'd be negotiating with them for every last nickel. I wouldn't treat employees that way. I would not want to be treated that way, although it happens.
It works in other sectors.
It does. It may, and if we wanted a high turnover, I'm sure we could even cut salaries. I'm not going to extremes. I've said it before. I'm very proud and very pleased with the performance of our employees. I take care of them as best I can. And I know you mean the same way too, but it's just, and I know we have to look at the future liability.
I'd follow Lauren, if we could just have a discussion about this. I mean, a real in-depth discussion about it and really think about it. We obviously have different philosophies on this. Many more businesses and entities do not do it the way you think it should be done and the way we're doing it right now. But there are other things to think of, and not just cut it off necessarily or do it the way we're doing it. There are things in between where adjustments could be made, so you're not going back to a 1950 base pay and and that's what your retirement on. Nobody's saying that. But the way we're headed with these continuous increases, I mean, we're going to have, $50,000 clerks. And that, I have a problem with it too, but all I'd ask is that we actually have a good discussion about this, and not just the question comes up and we spend 2 minutes and that's the end of the discussion. I think it deserves more. That's all. I mean, just a discussion.
We'll be meeting again for budgets in a year.
I'll be there.
Less than a year.
Less than a year.
Well, look at the time flies.
Any other questions, comments from the board? All right. With that offered, those in favor of approving the non-union employees' wages for the fiscal year 2015, including a 2% cost of living increase, the addendum for the fire chief, and the adjustment for the fire marshal, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered. That motion carries, and thank you. All right, Mrs. Smith.
I got to get there, hold on. Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I would like to make a recommendation based on the recommendation of the Festival Commission that the Township Board appoint John Bergen to the Grosio Festival Commission for the remainder of Bill Moreau's term ending August of 2015.
Support.
Okay, moved by trustee Smith, seconded by trustee Budney. Let's see, we're going to replace Mr. Moreau. Thank you, Bill, for your years of service with Mr. John Bergen.
And actually, Mr. Bergen and Chairman Novak are here tonight.
There's John right here.
Do a twirl.
All right.
Thank you.
What a time to come on the commission, huh?
Well, if you actually do live on Rio Road, you'll let you handle the noise complaints from the fireworks and the music. So, yeah, we want him on board.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be you, Lauren. Questions, comments from the board? Do you want to come up and say hi? Microphone should be hot.
Good evening, folks. My name is John Bergen. I'm a graduate of Roseville High School back in 1984. before. Moved away for some time and back in the area now. I work for Indian Trails, the premier motor coach provider in the state of Michigan and beyond. I also serve as a commander of operations for the Taylor Auxiliary Police Department.
Cool.
Well, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for your application. Any questions, comments from the board for, oh, you already left, so. But we'll call him back. Questions, comments from the board? All right, those in favor of approving, following the recommendation of the Festival Commission to appoint Mr. John Bergen to the Festival Commission for the remainder of Mr. Moreau's term ending in August of 2015, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered, motion carries. Welcome aboard, Mr. Bergen. All right. That's a big one. Okay, back to the stuff I'm responsible for. Recommend the Groseal Township Board of Trustees accept the resignation with regret of Mr. Jay Frucci from the Downtown Development Authority effective April 13th, 2015.
Support.
Okay, moved by the supervisor, seconded by trustee Smith. Jay Frucci's been a member of the DDA since 1999. His contributions were valuable, and he was our liaison between the DDA and the Planning Commission. We need to find somebody to fill that void, but in the meantime, he's just going to focus his local efforts on the Planning Commission. We will miss him. So with that, any questions, comments from the board? With that, those in favor of accepting with regret the resignation of Jay Frucci from the DDA, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Jay, once again, thanks. The motion carries. Okay, following along with more supervisor stuff. Actually, item number 5, I'm going to recommend, it's a two-part motion, recommend the Board of Trustees accept with regret the resignation of Mr. Richard Nielsen from Board of Review, effective April 13, 2015. And the B part of the motion, to approve the appointment of Mrs. Betty Lick to the Board of Review for the term April 13th to 2015 to December 31st, 2016, to fill the remainder of the term of Mr. Nielsen.
Support.
I'll give that to Mr. Buddy. So moved by supervisor, seconded by trustee Buddy. Richard Nielsen had been on the board since I was involved with it, and as chair chair the whole time. Board of Review is a statutory requirement. He ran it well, and not everybody liked the answer they got, but he ran the Board of Review well. So Richard, thank you so much for your service, and best wishes to you. Mrs. Lick previously served on the Board of Review up to, well, before I was involved in it, but she wished to serve again. The Board of Review meets in March here. It already met property assessment. July will be the next Board of Review, and she'll be a welcome addition back on the board. So those two parts of the motion, accepting Mr. Nielsen's resignation and the appointment of Mrs. Lick. Any discussion on the board? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of both accepting with regret Mr. Nielsen's resignation and the appointment of Mrs. Lick, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Those motions carry. Once again, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Supervisor, I just would want to say now that that's been accepted and Mrs. Lick has been appointed. Mrs. Lick, who we will find, is just a tireless worker and a great addition.
Good. Because that can be a very tedious job, sitting at Board Review. The current one, the one we just finished in March, went pretty smoothly, but sometimes they can get, as you can imagine, can get contentious. All right, one more for me. Board of Review. The same Board of Review. I'm recommending the Groseal Township Board of Trustees approve the appointment of Ms. Shelley Schmidtke as chairperson of the Board of Review for fiscal year 2015-16, as recommended by the Board of Review. Support. Who was? Oh, okay. I'll give it to Treasurer Van Oss. Okay, moved by Supervisor, seconded by Treasurer Van Oss. Again, we've discussed the Board of Review. statutory requirement. And again, they've done an excellent job, and they'll be meeting again in July for technical corrections. Questions or comments from the board? Mrs. Schmidtke is a Realtor and has been on the board review for as long as I can remember. Questions, comments? None offered. Those in favor of approving the appointment of Ms. Shelley Schmidtke as Chair of the Board Review for 2015 through 2016, as recommended by the board, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered. Shelley, thank you for volunteering for that position, and thanks for approving her appointment.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to move to approve the appointment of Mr. Dan Boggs to the Planning Commission for the term length April 1st, 2015 to March 31st, 2018.
Support.
Okay, moved by, thank you, moved by Clerk Rankin, seconded by Trustee Budney, with obviously the approval of the supervisor to move Mr. Boggs. We have him here. Comments from the board? My first thought was architect. An architect, and for all the appearance, not all, but many of the appearance issues, it would be great to get a professional architect's opinion, and just to bring that level of expertise aboard. Questions, comments from the board on Mr. Boggs' appointment?
We'll put him to work next week.
Invite him up, Dad. Dad, step up and introduce yourself, please.
Nice to see a blue devil up there.
Good evening, my name is Dan Boggs. Just excited to be part of the commission, and I'm looking forward to serving next Monday.
We'll check with him Tuesday. Any questions for Mr. Boggs from the board? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Hey, with none offered, those in favor of approving the appointment of Mr. Dan Boggs to the Planning Commission for the term length April 1st, 2015 through March 31st, 2018, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered. Thank you, and welcome aboard, Mr. Boggs. Oh, that's right. I'm taking this one. This one's a little involved, but anyway. I'm recommending the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees approve the purchase of the sound system for the Township Boardroom in accordance with the sound engineering proposals dated February 20th, 2015, in the amounts of $18,835 for the Township Boardroom sound system upgrade and $11,925 for the Township Boardroom system upgrade to allow the facility to be used as a backup emergency operations center. Total cost of $30,760.
Support.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Supervisor, seconded by Trustee Budney. I'm going to invite, if I would, Mr. Fournier to cover some of the nuts and bolts. Joe, did you want to talk about the emergency ops center portion? Do you want to do that first? Well, Ted can give the overarching condition of the mixing system, and the chief can, why we need a backup emergency ops center and the commonality. But I'll let Mr. Fournier, since you got to the mic first, Ted.
I'm bigger than he is.
But he has a good
In October, we had as you guys all recall, we had a bunch of instances about the sound, so I started looking into upgrading. All right, first of all, we called in 3 companies to give us estimates of what it would take to upgrade, modernize, get the 2015 system. They all agreed that our system has used its shelf life and we needed to upgrade. So we got sound engineering, Thalner Electric, and advanced lighting to come in. We got basically 3 estimates ranging from sound engineering under $20,000 to over $40,000 from Thalner. And so we were going to naturally, go out for bids, and hopefully sound engineering would keep the same price in their bid as they did as their estimate. But then the police department, the fire department modernized their public safety building, which I hope everybody's gone over there and taken a look at the status of the public safety equipment they got. It's extremely, extremely modern, up to date, and useful. And I went in there for a demonstration, and Chief said to us, well, they wanted to bring this up, so we decided to work together. And since sound engineering was not only the lowest estimate, but also had done a wonderful job at the public safety building. We decided to bring them in to give us an estimate for the room. And basically what they did is they designed the room, and then they took the sound, and that'll come out of the cable budget, and they took the backup for the public safety room, I guess, I don't know what the official term is, and that's going to come out of the public safety budget. So basically all your mics will be replaced. They'll be a little shorter, so you guys are going to have to lean into them a little more. They will have on and off switch. This podium is going to be the main part of Chief's project. It'll have a touch screen that you can draw on, and there will be a whiteboard in the back for the public safety aspect of it. We're also going to modernize this so you can bring in your phones and your pads and basically type in a number, and you will be able to put demonstrations up on for everybody to see and on television just from your own iPad and your own phone. So we're going to modernize to that. People will be able to bring in, well, they can USB now, but we'll have all the ports here. So whatever the latest gadgets are, the public's going to be able to utilize that. And then the part you won't see is all the Panja equipment, which is the sound system, is going to be replaced and modernized, and we'll be able to control it on an iPad. I don't know if you saw the bands out here last year. All the sound systems now, instead of all that equipment, they sit there with an iPad and they control everything, their sound systems for that. So we're going to be state of the art, and it's going to work out perfectly because sound engineering, which was the lowest estimate, is going to come in and do everything for both departments.
Yeah, I really like the idea of the commonality between the two rooms to make.
Joe, before you start, can I ask Ted a quick question? And just to make sure we understand what's going on with this sound improvement that we're talking about is for this room. Is it, we've had this ongoing problem with sound for the people at home. Will any of this help them at all?
No.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so those are two different problems.
The problem is, and we had a reoccurrence about 2-3 weeks ago, is that, and I hate to slander, but one of our providers, whenever they do anything at the head end, their sound goes really low. And I was off for a few days in March. When I came back, both the school and our channels were suppressed. One call to the provider, they came out, and fixed it up on their end. So, but what I can reassure you is everything from your mic to the broadcast going out will be updated, state of the art, and very likely, if there's a sound problem, I know it won't happen, but call the provider, because that's where it is. Right now, we haven't had any trouble inside the building. It's always outside the building.
Thank you. I just wanted to say it because a lot of people, we get a lot of questions on that, and I didn't want anybody thinking that this was going to necessarily take care of that if it wasn't.
Yeah, and Ted, I noticed on here there's 16 microphones. Where are those all going?
Well, actually, it says 16. He put in 16. We're actually going to actually have, there's 14 in the room. Mm-hmm. You're not.
Oh, right, yeah, I forget about those.
There's 14 in the room, so it'll be 14. And we still haven't, and I will talk to some of you, I got a 12-inch microphone, but we could still go to a, if you want to keep the 18-inch, we could still keep the 18-inch.
Good evening. Just to give you a little bit of background where this came from, Supervisor Loftus, myself, and Chief Murdoch got together this a few months back, and we were looking for something for an alternative area for a command center or a mobile command center. If I can back up just a bit again, as you know, with my forfeiture money, it's like the FIFO rule in the stock market. It's first in, first out, and it's a 2-year rule. I did have some extra money, and this is what my next project that we were looking into. I asked Brian, I said, would you have a problem, maybe if we made this room the secondary? We looked at, Duncan looked at some vehicles too with myself, and they're so expensive, and when would you use them? So what we did was we thought if we could duplicate the interactive board here, where you, on your iPads, again, anybody can call in if for some reason it's down due to a chemical spill, a chemical release in the air, that we have to come to the south end like before. South of Rucker last time was clear. We were in the middle of the release, but we had no choice. The emergency command center was right in the middle of it. There was no other choice to do what we did. So Brian agreed that we could look into it, at least bring the proposal to the board, and to duplicate what we have was the $11,000, I'm sorry, just under $12,000 was that part. And then the township obviously is taking care of all the other issues. But what we're doing is bringing in what we have there. Sound engineering was the lowest bid there for both projects, and to duplicate it. So what we'd like you to do is okay that for tonight, and what you would have here is duplication in one area, but obviously, I mean, it's great equipment, and that's your policy, anybody can use it, that's in here, but when we need it, and we're able to do what we can do in that command center that we'll be able to do here. And I think that's very important, that at least we have two places on Groseal. We already hit once with it. And, we may not use it again, but it's all usable equipment. And if we need it, it's here, we can do it. And the cost, it was up to $80,000. I looked at some vehicles to duplicate it in a vehicle, or to have the equipment in Duncan's or mine is almost, it's almost ridiculous to have. It just wouldn't work that way.
Something else I need to finish working on, but the emergency operations plans, and that could be a full-time job, keeping up with the requirements, but I seem to remember one of the requirements is they wanted communities to have, if they're going to have an emergency response plan, to have an emergency operations center in the community, and they really wanted a backup too.
Absolutely.
Of course, no funding came with that.
No, absolutely. They want an alternative place.
Yeah.
They would like to see two in a city. Now, we don't have the most perfect places to go to. One would be at the north end, one would be at the south. We have one in the center now and one in the south. That's as good as we can do without the mobile center. But the mobile center, they're just so expensive to duplicate it inside of a vehicle. Just the vehicle is expensive. Yeah. You're looking at $40,000, $50,000 just for a big van or something like that. It's just not worth it. So that's what we're asking for. And again, I'm using the drug forfeiture money to pay for this. There's no fiscal impact for my side of this program.
And as always, I hope we never have to activate it outside of an exercise. So, other questions, comment, Mr. Treasurer?
Just one comment or question. I understand that $20,000 is coming from the communications department, and the balance is coming from the police department?
18.8 is coming from, I believe that's 18.8 was coming from Communication Commission funds, and then the other, was that right, Chief? And then the 11.9 was coming from drug forfeiture.
Yes, that was a split from Duncan and myself.
Okay, other questions? All right. Again, hope we never have to use it. Those in favor of approving the purchase of the sound system for the Township Boardroom in accordance with the sound engineering proposals dated February 20, 2015, amounts of $18,835 for the Township Boardroom sound system upgrade and $11,925 for the Township Boardroom system upgrade to allow the facility to be used as a backup emergency operations center totaling $30,760. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That offered? That.
Thank you very much.
That carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Supervisor, move to approve the proposed zoning ordinance amendments to Article 16, sign regulations, Section 16.3 and 16.8 of the Code of the Township of Groseal, zoning ordinance based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Support. Okay, motion by Clerk Ranka, seconded by Trustee Budney.
So I'll read the history and then maybe describe it a little bit more. So a subcommittee of the Planning Commission reviewed and made recommendations of potential amendments to the zoning ordinance regarding sign regulations for automobile fueling stations. As a result of the subcommittee's review and subsequent discussions with the full Planning Commission, amendments to the ordinance have been prepared. See attached findings of fact. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 16th, 2015 regarding the proposed zoning ordinance amendments to Article 16 entitled Sign Regulations. There was no public comment. In a sense, what this zoning ordinance does is allows gasoline stations, specifically mobile or automobile gasoline stations, which is semi-important because there is one marine gas station on the island, to display lighted signs for the gasoline price only. So no, the lights are not to have any motion, just static displays of the gasoline prices.
Competitive with what is just about every other community has.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, as soon as this is approved, that there was a very short time period where one of the stations did have an electronic sign board that's now gone.
Oh, well. Okay, questions, comments among the board? I think these are the only electronic signs that will be on the island.
Yes.
Questions, comments from the board? None offered. Those in favor of approving?
We need a roll call, sir.
Oh, roll call for, indeed we do. Well,
It's it's a zoning.
okay, zoning, so the next one will be also. All right, we will by roll call then. Those in favor of approving the amendment to the zoning ordinance regarding, where is it? 16, the sign regulations, specifically 16.3 and 16.8 of the Code of the Township zoning ordinance, based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission. And I will begin with Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Trustee Budney. Aye. Treasurer Van Oss.
Aye.
Supervisor, aye. Clerk Ranka.
Aye.
Trustee Malvesto.
Aye.
And Trustee Posias.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the proposed zoning ordinance amendments to Article 19, General Provisions, Section 19.14, Waste Receptacles of the Code of Township of Groseal zoning ordinance based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Support.
Okay, moved by Clerk Ranka, seconded by Trustee Budney.
So similar story here. I'll read the purpose and explanation and then do a little more detailed analysis. The subcommittee of the Planning Commission reviewed and made recommendations of the potential amendments to the zoning ordinance regarding design regulations for waste receptacles. As a result of the subcommittee's review and subsequent discussions with the full Planning Commission, amendments to the ordinance have been prepared. See attached findings of fact. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 16th, 2015 regarding the proposed zoning ordinance amendment to Article 19 entitled General Provisions. There was no public comment. So this is specifically regarding waste receptacles or dumpster enclosures, if you will. They had an ordinance that required hard material, basically brick and concrete with movable gates to screen in all dumpster enclosures. One of the churches on the island, the pastor brought it to our attention that they needed a dumpster enclosure, but they wanted to do it in a vinyl or softer siding. So we looked at the zoning ordinances, reviewed that with that of other communities, and determined that under some situations, softer materials, wood or vinyl, would be appropriate for certain dumpster locations. Not all dumpster locations. So this this zoning ordinance basically says that it's up to the Planning Commission to make the recommendation whether it could be a soft material or it needs to be a hard material. And that would be based on a number of factors. One of them is the usage that it receives and the location that it's in.
To me, this was an example of the Planning Commission responding to the needs of the community rather than things the other way around. So I was really glad to see this come up and handled very well. Questions, comments from the board? All right, if none offered. Again, this will be another roll call vote. Those in favor of approving the proposed zoning ordinance amendments to Article 19, General Provisions, Section 19.14, Waste Receptacles, the Code of the Township of Groseal zoning ordinance, based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission. And let's go in reverse order this time. Trustee Posias.
Aye.
Trustee Malvesto.
Aye.
Clerk Ranka.
Aye.
Supervisor, aye. Treasurer Van Oss.
Aye.
Trustee Budney.
Aye.
And Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you once again. And let's see, what had this? Mr. Budney.
Mr. Supervisor, you're on a roll. You want to just carry the rest of it along?
That's my breath.
Okay, well, in that case, I'd like to make a motion to award the contract for the 2015-2016 local street sectioning program to GV Cement Contracting Company, the lowest qualified bidder, in the amount not to exceed $465,000, based upon the recommendations of the DPS Commission and the Charles E. Raines Company.
Support.
Okay, moved by trustee Buddy, seconded by trustee Smith. The news you've all been waiting for, when are we going to fix the roads?
And this is
Take it away, Jim.
This is part of it, and I would like to call Mr. Costick up to the podium. But this is a portion of that Wayne County Department of Public Service pool of money that we've talked about in the past. We were awarded or made available to us $500,000 with if we match 20% of that. This is part of that program. This is for the cement work that we would be doing. We have a number of projects that we had come up with in putting this whole thing together. There's various other parts, crack sealing and other things that won't be part of this that'll come up later, which will be coming to you for that. But that's what this is about. Bill, would you? Mr. Costick is the chairman of our Public Service Commission.
Good evening, everybody. I think you have a thorough report that was submitted by the staff. So we're totally in favor of proceeding with this, and we've had discussions on it last fall when we heard the news, and hopefully there'll be a second year allocation of another $500,000. We have to match it with $100,000, and you'll notice that this price, maybe you covered it, Mr. Budney, but is for $465,000, not to exceed that amount. We still have several areas, about a dozen streets that would be joint and crack sealed, and Raines Engineering tells me that the bids for joint and crack sealing are being taken in conjunction with Flat Rock and Riverview to hopefully get a better price. So we'll be bringing that back to you in I would assume 30 days. Heard from the audience a question asked when this topic came up is where. There's about 40 different areas for the concrete replacement. Streets all the way from the north to south end of our community. A big focus is on Grays Drive by the high school, which is really deteriorated this year. So I did want to also comment, so that's very positive, and the only other comment I have is the roads on the island are terrible. The roads on the island, when we leave the island, are terrible. Whether you go north, south, or due west, the roads throughout our county are terrible, and throughout lower Michigan. Everybody's waiting to see what happens May 5th. As you know, our commission for the past 2 years has been working on studying roads, coming up with a long-term fix. We've presented it to you. We've submitted it to the county in December, and formally in February, we were advised by Wayne County that 2 of our roads where we were counting on federal aid that are eligible, there's only 3 roads on the island eligible for federal aid, Grosse Ile Parkway, Meridian, and East River, that we will never qualify for federal aid based on our traffic volumes and our lack of congestion compared with all the other roads. We haven't fully accepted that answer yet, but what I will tell you is after the 5th, our commission will be meeting diligently. We have to bring something back to you. We just can't let it ride. The thing to remember, this is a local road street improvement program for neighborhood roads. The roads are, for anybody watching, all the roads on the island, because we're a township, are actually under the jurisdiction of Wayne County. Cities have their own roads. Because we're township status, we do not own any of the roads. But we live with all the roads. We've studied this issue over the years. Wayne County's road revenues, just like MDOT's, have all declined. So Michigan, as you know, and it's in the papers almost every day, is reaching a road crisis. So what we're going to do as a commission is, as soon as May 5th's over with and we know whether there's approval for something or a lack of approval, we're going to try to come back to you within 30 days after that and ask probably for a study session to go through the program thoroughly, because if we're going to do nothing, that's one alternative. If we're going to try to move something forward with a plan to improve the secondary and primary roads, not the neighborhood roads, but we need to address the major, I call them secondary and primary roads, which includes East River, West River, Meridian, Church Road, Ferry, and numerous others that are in very bad condition. And I might add, we're going to do some chip sealing this year on about 4 miles of roads. One of the sections was East River between Manchester and Grow. The deterioration this winter is substantial of what we were going to do. So we had budgeted $30,000 anticipating additional base work, and we're going to need all that. So things are getting worse, not better. It's been a tough winter for everybody. I just wanted to point out that we'll be coming back to address our major road system. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Costick. One of the things that dropped into place on this was the matching some of the townships. This was announced, a year or so ago. Not all the townships involved had available the matching funds to partake of this pool for repair of residential roads. Fortunately, I'm just going to give it out to the voters, because you have approved a road millage, we have the funds available to come up with our match, and we will use our $500,000 wisely. And hopefully we'll get it again next year, but by golly, we've got plans for it for this year, and we'll see improvements. Other questions, comments from the board? All right, with none offered. Those in favor of approving the award of the contract for the 2015-16 local street sectioning program to GD Smith Contracting Company, the lowest qualified bidder, in an amount not to exceed $465,000, based upon the recommendation of the DPS Commission and the Charles E. Raines Company, the Township Engineers, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered. That is approved. And now you know when the roads are going to start getting fixed. All right. Action item number 12. I'm going to move that the Grosse Township Board of Trustees approve a revised board meeting agenda format policy.
Support.
Okay, moved by the supervisor, seconded by trustee Budney. What I'm doing here, what we're attempting to do here is codify in our policies and procedures manual the sequence of events we have at our board meetings. The last one that's in the P&P manual is dated 2003. It's not the way we're doing business. And this is the beginning of this board's plan to revamp the policies and procedures manual to reflect the way the township wants to do business. It's going to be a tedious process. This is the first step because we see this every night. It's how this board has chosen to do business. I think it moves very smoothly. And of course, there is no statutory guidance on how a board meeting is to be run, but this board seems to be running very well with this format, so we want to codify it. The next board may choose to change it. But the distinction you'll see, I've taken the liberty to add the township attorney's report, because he's here at just about every meeting, and it's important that you see where those legal fees are going, and these are issues that he's helping us to fix. So there may be some challenge in the thing that's been moved around was we've added the township, after the trustees' reports, we've added the township attorney, the manager, with me playing cleanup. Sometimes it was easier to let Dale cover the things I'd forgotten, but we'll try it this way. If this doesn't work, we can move it around again. Questions, comments, and other comments that Mrs. Gray, who was always following the legality of it, that the state requires us to use the full title, the Pledge of Allegiance. How do they go? Pledge Allegiance of the flag of the United States of America. We have to use that terminology. So anyway, this new policy will comply with state law and the way we want to do business. Comments from the board?
Just a quick comment, Mr. Supervisor. I know we changed this maybe a little more than a year ago. I think it was at your suggestion to do so, and that the format that we're working on right now, I think, is fantastic. So significant improvement over previous formats. So I'm very happy with the format.
Thank you. It's, again, I've got to thank the whole board because, we got our ideas in and this is what we came up with and it works for us.
I'd just like to add to that, I agree with Eric. I think this is working well, and the addition of Mr. Assorti to our comments can nothing but enhance what we're putting out here. So, welcome, Tom.
Other comments from the board? All right, this will be, I'm not going to read the sequence of events, it's the sequence you're seeing tonight. Those in favor of approving the revised business meeting agenda policy, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered? It is so codified. That concludes tonight's action items. With that, Clerk Ranker.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll start off with liaison reports. We've got a police commission meeting tomorrow night and a planning commission meeting next Monday. So welcome again, Mr. Boggs, to the planning commission. We'll see you on Monday. Regarding the clerk's report, we do have an election coming up May 5th. Chairman Kostick, the DPS referenced it. There is at least one state action item on there for the roads sales tax increase, and there's also a local school board topic on there as well. Regarding the election, qualified voters may apply to receive absentee ballots for the May 5th election now through Saturday, May 2nd at 2 p.m. The clerk's office will be open May 2nd from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. for absentee ballot requests. Qualified voters may obtain an absentee ballot in person at the clerk's office until 4 p.m. on Monday, May 4th. However, ballots must be voted on the premises and submitted before leaving Township Hall on that particular date. And just a reminder that unvoted ballots must be handed to the person that they are issued to. Family members may not pick up ballots for each other. Ballot request applications may be picked up and delivered to the clerk's office by family members. However, the ballots will be mailed to the registered voter. The last day that ballots may be mailed from the clerk's office is Saturday, May 2nd at 2 p.m. St. James Episcopal Church on East River will continue to be the voting location for voters in Precinct 3 and 4 who previously voted at the VFW Hall, and we do thank the St. James Episcopal Church for allowing us to use their facility. The public accuracy test of voting programming and equipment will be conducted on Monday, April 27th at 6:30 p.m. at Township Hall. And that's it for the clerk's report.
All right, thank you, Clerk Ranka. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. For the month of February, Grosse Ile Township had a total of $17,763,069 invested in various accounts, generated an income of about $5,000 at an interest rate of 0.34%, which is a marked improvement over what it's been. It's going in the right direction. The final data for the year, for the month end, is being calculated. There is an investment report for Grosse Ile Township on my website, where you can come down to Township Hall and get it. There is an error on it. It says that we're gaining interest at a rate of 34%. That's not true, trust me, because otherwise we'd all be retiring. The Treasurer's Office is selling 2015 dog tags. Please provide your valid rabies vaccination when purchasing your pet tag. Cost of the tag is now $12. Dog park passes are also available for $10, and that's for residents. Non-residents are $20, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. We'll move on to trustee reports. We'll start with Mr. Pozas.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The mute button says I'm off, but I'm on. There we go. It's deciding for me. Last week, our Greenways Open Space Committee met on Tuesday, and the discussion, a big part of the discussion involves the Dump the Junk event, and it's called Dump the Junk, Find a Treasure. I'll leave Woody to talk about that during the public comment period, and he'll show off the treasure that I think he found. Just today, though, I had something come in from MDEQ. They have recommended that there should be no trimming of oak trees or movement of wood taking place due to the oak wilt disease that is caused by trimming and moving of such wood. I didn't have a chance to get it out to everybody else, but our committee knows about it, Dale knew about it, and I'll be trying to get some communication out to people so that they don't jeopardize their existing oak trees by doing any trimming and putting a fresh wound on. I guess it moves from a beetle with a fungus that grows under the bark of the laid down wood or the damaged wood, and it'll kill anything within 100 feet of it. So let's be careful in our trimming. As far as BPAC is concerned, we are meeting next week on Tuesday, and I expect to have hopefully some information on the bridges and paths surveys, and just a little bit of excitement coming down in August. It looks like we're going to have a confluence of events on August 22nd. The Baradur, which means warrior in French, is a bicycle race or a marathon of 100 miles, and is being promoted by the president of Wayne State University. I'm pleased to report to you that as of right now, there are over 100 people who are already enlisted for that 100-mile run, of which about 10 miles is on Grosse Hill. That weekend, we will also have our Walk the Path event, which is the event that we had last year, Tom and I worked on, and we had a great time at it. And the garage sales are occurring that Saturday, so August 22nd ought to be a real beehive here. And what a way to show off our community, huh? End of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Posiask. Mrs. Smith.
Mr. Smith, yeah. Ooh.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, Mrs. Supervisor. 46 more days until the much-anticipated Island Fest. It's May 29th through the 31st. Lots of good entertainment planned, 50-amp fuse, killer flamingos, Howlin' Mercy, DJs dancing at the beach, going to have the marketplace in the hangar again. Want to invite anybody out there to please sign up and volunteer. There is a link on the islandfestgrosehill.com website, or you can go directly to volunteerspot.com and just search for Island Fest. There are also lots of sponsorship opportunities still available, so we have something for everyone, or at least to fit every budget, so don't be afraid to approach us if you're looking to get involved in some way. And I think that is pretty much it. Oh, no, our next Island Fest meeting is going to be this Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
That's it?
That's it.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Quick question. Is that promoted on a Pure Michigan website?
It should be. I know last year it was.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, I'll make a note. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Valvesto.
Brian, Mr. Supervisor.
First off, I'd like to start out by, I think about 2 weeks ago, I attended a music program at the high school. It was put on by young Chris DeAngelis. I believe it was his idea. He did a majority of the planning, producing, and performing. He did that with a lot of volunteer help. It was a fundraiser for cancer. It was a tremendous program to see a young person, a group of young people, put something on like that. Hats off to them. They did a tremendous job. We had a fire commission meeting last week. I can tell you that the township's in the very best of hands. Chief Murdoch and the boys are doing a great job. Their call numbers are on par with last year, which means we'll have another 600 call a year. His latest members of the volunteer fire department, the young guys he's got nothing but the best things to say about them. How eager they are. They just jump in and do things, and they're really taking over, not taking over, but falling into place with the other volunteers who have been on the job for quite a while. So thanks, Chief. You boys are doing a great job like always. The next Rec Commission meeting, Brandy, it's going to be the 30th, correct? Yes. Will be on the 30th. Mr. Supervisor, give me just a few seconds, please. The reason I asked for that is, a couple weeks ago, there was an article in the Yale Camera about the Communications Commission. That's not the problem. In the online version of the story, a person took an opportunity to take a cheap shot at one of our employees. Excuse me, he crawled off behind a rock, or under a rock. I don't care if you take a shot at this board, or me personally, but you leave our employees alone. I got your trail, I got your user address, it also matches up with your Facebook address. There's only one of you on Grosse Ile. I hope it never happens again. I really do. Leave our employees alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Modesto. Mr. Budney?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. First, I'd like to say that I back Tom 100% on that. Not only was the cheap shot taken, but it was taken from inside a closet, no name. Tom did some legwork to find out who the person was, and there's just no place for that, especially since the person was 100% off on his comment. It had no truth whatsoever. So I too say leave the employees alone. ZBA, no meeting this month. I know a lot of people are upset and sad about that, as I am every month that we don't have one. However, DPS, we have our meeting tomorrow. We will be discussing various items, one of them dust control. The pressure reducing valve update will be discussed. As you know or don't know, we're trying to put in a new pressure reducing valve at the north end of the island. That's been ongoing for some months, and so there will be an update on where we are with that. We'll be discussing water main breaks, and probably most important, or certainly one of my topics that I always like to see, is the continued discussion of our long-term road and water main program. So get there early, seats fill up really quick, so that's what's on the agenda for tomorrow. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Budney. Let's see, following our new format, introduce our Township Attorney, Mr. Assorti.
Good evening. A couple things to report to you. As many of you know, we went to great lengths with the 33rd District Court to try to consolidate what's considered department rep hearings, which are the traffic tickets that are handled by our police department without my involvement or without my office's involvement, as well as the prosecutions, which is where we represent the township. Our goal was to have those conducted on the same day to reduce not only your cost, the township's cost in having people over at the 33rd District Court conducting prosecutions, but to help the police department, so to reduce the number of hours that the officers are actually over at the court versus working on the things that they would need to work on the island. So we had gotten the schedule pretty much set with the 33rd District Court. We made some adjustments to our old normal day of Tuesday to Wednesday to accommodate that, and it looks like that may have been changed. So we're going to continue to work with them, and at times it's difficult. With Flat Rock as the other small community in the 33rd District Court, to have our voice heard at times when you're competing against Trenton and the like. But we'll get there, and we'll keep doing what we can to keep those costs in the absolute minimum. Not that we don't want to go anywhere necessarily with the prosecutions reduced, but every dollar that we spend on that, every dollar that the township spends on that, takes away from the overall process. So we're with the police department. My office is doing everything we can to consolidate those dates and make them work efficiently. We've done a great job of getting them all scheduled to minimize the amount of time that we're actually over there, but it's a work in progress. And in all fairness, the 33rd District Court, that district was put together some time ago when the communities are not necessarily the size they are now. And it's one of the bigger district courts in the whole state, so it's kind of a unique situation. The Railroad Apartments, we've got the contractor over there to reduce some of the additional hazards that Chief Murdoch was concerned about. We've got the approval from the trustee for that with a priority on repayment of those fees. And we will, over the next couple of days, I'll be working with the chief to make sure that the property is in the condition that the township is comfortable with until the receiver figures out what's going to happen with that parcel of property and how we're going to deal with it. Finally, the lawsuit that you are all named defendants in, the courts moved the initial status conference date to May the 4th. It was only April 28th, but to May the 4th, and hopefully at that time we will have some direction from Judge Popke as to the scheduling of the motions that are ready to be filed for dismissal of all the defendants based on governmental immunity that we can't seem to convey to the plaintiff that exists. So hopefully, and maybe we can get some little assistance from Judge Popke on that, who is very well versed in that area of the law. Any questions for me?
Matter of fact, on the last issue, with the motorhome parked illegally by our standards, improperly, that might be the better term, we could be fining him on a daily basis for it being there. Yes, I mean, every day could be a violation, or weekly, or some other methodology. Is it more economically beneficial for him to tie this up in court? Because I don't think he's paying a whole lot in legal fees. I'm speculating. Forgive me for that, but is it just an economic decision? I'll milk this court case for as long as I can and not have to pay to store it in a private storage location?
Hey, not sure what the motivation is on the other end. I will tell you, though, that I have taken the position with the court, with the township's approval, that our position is, if you have an issue with our ordinances and the legality of our ordinances, let's bring that before the court, and we'll be happy to take our position with the court. To bring all of you, Officer Gray, Chief Porcerelli, pretty much everybody. I think the only one that's not in it is me, as the defendants, is inappropriate. And there's a forum to discuss whether or not our local ordinances are appropriate under Michigan and United States law. That's fine. And I'm happy to defend our current position. But to have you as individually named defendants is, in my opinion, a waste of taxpayer dollars. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that we don't waste any more in that process.
Okay. Comments, questions for Mr. Assorti? Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Mr. Liam.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have a few brief items to report. First is the reminder that the restaurant proposals are due on April 15th, our favorite day of the year. And we expect, after the inquiries that we've had, that we will be receiving proposals from several different restaurateurs that are interested in the facility at Water's Edge. The lawn care bids have been received and interviews will be taking place this week. And last, I wanted to remind the board, in 2.5 weeks, the rink committee will be meeting, and one of our main topics will be fundraising. I know we had talked about that, various comments about where we are as a group and working on repaying back the township some of those funds you fronted for us for the boards, and that is in process. So I just wanted to keep it on my radar as well. So nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Liam. All right, let's see if I can wrap this up, at least for my end.
Excuse me, Mr. Supervisor, could you add one thing to your list?
I can.
The Pat Somerville's.
That's on there. It's not part of my addendum to myself.
Okay.
Actually,
thank you.
This is pretty much what Carol says, and this is what you need to push out, and by the way, here's the flyers for it. So, the second household hazardous waste collection sponsored by the Wayne County Department of Public Services will be held on Saturday, May 2nd at Flat Rock Community Fields, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. There's a flyer for that in the back of the room, and it looks like this. Okay, the island-wide garage sale, as was previously mentioned, Friday and Saturday, August 21st and 22nd, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Carol has people signing up for it already. Again, the flyer looks like this. There are some of these in the back of the room. It'll be also on the Township website. I'm going to count on, we've already talked about dump the junk, find the treasure. I'm going to count on Woody to fill in any details on that. He knows more about it than all of us, and he works it every single time. So I'll move on. Grosio Garden Club hosting a rummage sale on Saturday, April 18th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the VFW Hall. Household goods and other items will be available, but not clothing. All proceeds will help pay for the hanging pots on Macomb Street. Those are the flower pots we have from our light posts. Supporters can also help with contributions. Donations can be made by sending checks to Grosio Garden Club, P.O. Box 413, Grosio, Michigan. This Saturday, 2015 Kiwanis All-Island Cleanup will be held on Saturday, April 18th at 9 a.m. Meet at the Northridge Church near the corner of Meridian and Macomb. There's a light breakfast before we start out and a messy pizza lunch usually at the end of the day, and you will be messy. Okay, and Grosio Nature Land Conservancy will celebrate Earth Day on Wednesday, April 22nd, 2015 from 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. at St. James Episcopal Church. A lot of information on that. This is the flyer in the back room. It's two sides. A lot of information, and I believe our own Peter Kantz was named their Citizen of the Year. So congratulations to him. Chief, can you help me out on the boater safety course? It was on the website. It's off the website. Is the boater safety course going to be offered at Public Safety?
Yes.
Put you on the spot here, but...
Yes, you can call, I believe it is next week. Call the dispatch at 7100. We have a list of probably almost 30 people already
Okay.
on it. Yeah, just call the dispatch, put your name on it. They will add you to it and tell you the exact time and date.
All right, I was showing the 20th of April and the 27th, so that's two consecutive Mondays.
It's on the 20th, but you have to be there for both.
But you must be there for both.
Certificate, yes.
Okay, and there, I wish I could give the age, but there is an age range where you have to have the course to operate a boat safely. And I'm sure Chief Murdoch will back me up. The safer the people operating boats, the less the guys have to launch the rescue equipment. So I'm kind of all for that. Anyway, call dispatch and find out the details on that, 676-7100. Mr. Fournier.
It's still on the webpage, you just have to hit the word more on the...
Oh, okay. That's what I was missing. And based on some of our last board meeting where Trustee Malvesto said we need to get some explanation on Proposition 1, Pat Somerville has volunteered to, he's not hosting it, we're hosting it, but to participate in an open house where he's going to give his position on, among other things, explaining Proposition 1, the big May 5th ballot initiative, and other things that are going on in the legislature. It's not going to be a one-sided presentation. I want to know where he stands, what's going on in the legislature, and a number of other issues. So that will be April 23rd, right here at 7 p.m. And he's going to take questions and answers. So if you got something vexing you on the state level, he's the guy to lean on. So anyway, hope to see you there. I will be there, and that will conclude my report. And that means it's time for, I think, looking at the new format. We have no discussion items scheduled, so we'll move on to public comment, and this is 3 minutes on any topic. And Mr. Johnson, it's good to see you again. Did you want to speak to the constituents or to Mr. Young's constituents?
Yeah, you know what? Talking on that, just what
she was talking about that proposal one. I did say I was gonna bring that information back.
Apparently you have.
Right. I can just pass it to you?
Yeah, we'll make them available to the residents. Mr. Johnson now is a district representative for our state senator, Coleman Young II. And you may be aware that the senator voted against the, put that as a ballot initiative, as did Mr. Somerville, but the preponderance of both houses voted to move it forward and hand it to the residents, so be an informed voter.
Just an overview of what they're asking, and wait till I get back to the mic.
Okay, I'll stall for you.
Yeah, like I said, that's just an overview of the bill. Excuse me, the proposal. If anybody got any questions on it.
Oh, there's...
Yeah, that's what I said. It's pretty much is like a three-way split. The money, I think I stated that last time I was here. It won't just go to roads. And like the first 2 years, it'll go for bonds, to pay back loans. It's like a certain amount the first year and another certain amount the next year. That's just how they got it set up to go. So I just want everybody to have that information. If there's any questions on it, you can just ask it. But it's going to schools, police and fire, and municipalities. We'll be raising the gas tax 7%, earned income to 20%, and some legality on bonding, who get the contract, stuff like that. So.
Mr. Fournier, can we get this up on the township website? That'll be positioned. There's a couple of, I did get a couple of flyers from MTA that were supporting the proposal, so this is a very, very important ballot initiative, and the more information, I want good turnout voting, and, we're going to get what democracy dictates, so I want informed voters. At least, my reach is only out to Grosse Township, but we'll get as much information out as possible.
Well, that's it. If nobody got questions, you can always call us. Yeah.
I will, and the best regards to our favorite senator, state senator. Thank you, Mr. Johnson L. Other public comment, Mr. Clark.
Woody Clark, Park Lane. Legal fees, I didn't hear anything about legal fees. Guys, what's on the slide over there?
I got it today. Legal fees on the warrant list for Cots, Sainster, and Wysocki for arbitration in the amount of $418.
Okay. And when people go on vacation in your place here, and then we call, and we call, and we call, and nobody answers the phone, and to find out, we call somebody else, and that person was on vacation. It would be nice to, if we call that number, they're on vacation, they tell us they're on vacation, so that we don't keep on calling. Thank you. The non-union 2%. Now, everybody that retires, workers here, get a 2% raise every year. Every year they get a raise. So if they're out for 20 years, that's a 40% raise. Right?
Well, it's not exact, because with the compounding, it actually becomes more.
Yeah, right.
So, kind of right.
Okay, when are they going to start on Horse Mill and Grill?
Start what?
Fixing it.
Horse Mill and Grow.
Horse Mill? Oh, Grill.
Road.
Pardon?
Where do they cross?
Yeah. They don't cross, they're going to be completed with the asphalt and the stones. Not the rolling stones, but the stones.
The chip sealing won't be until this summer.
Well, you have to do a prep.
Prep is one thing, yeah, but the actual...
We expect the prep very soon.
Yeah,
The prep is soon?
Very soon.
Because at 8139 or 35 on Horse Mill, there's a hell of a lot of prep that's got to go on that one. Okay. dump the junk. No TVs, no computers, no cement. From little stones to big, large things in cement, do not bring. You're going to swing you around and go home and put it in your yard again. And here's something on smart meters. If you go to smartmeterguard.com, there's a guard out there that should put you on your meter so you don't get radiation. Okay, so if you go to that site, it'll show you what they have. You can make it or you can buy it for the radiation in your house that's going through right now.
That's the electric meter
Right.
on your house.
It doesn't knock the electricity down, it knocks the radiation down. Okay? Now what about the wood?
Do you wish me to repeat it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Please.
Please? You're welcome. This morning, I got a bulletin from MDEQ that said that they are strongly urging people, do not trim your oak trees during the period of time of April 15th through July 15th, and further, do nothing with any oak wood during that period of time, fallen, dead, or alive. The reason is there is a disease in Michigan, and it's quite rampant. It's attacking our oak trees, and it is conveyed by a beetle picking up a fungus underneath the bark of the tree and taking it from tree to tree, killing the trees. They die within 8 weeks of being infected.
Oh, so they're going to go down, huh?
Well, it's possible, so anybody that wants to trim a tree, wait until August or fall. And, you know, people, we have this great program about cutting firewood. We've got a nice system established.
Right.
But I'm urging that we put a moratorium on it until July 15th, just to protect our oak forestry.
We just have to email them and tell them, and call them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Since we've been advised that Dump the Junk here will not take computers, electronics, the Wayne County Recycle, that's the same day, will take computers and electronics.
Where is that located?
That is at the Flat Rock Community Fields. So when you send them away from DPS lot, send them over to the Flat Rock Community Fields. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Where's the fields?
Off Gibraltar Road by Flat Rock High School. Flat Rock, let's see, 25600 Seneca Street. Behind Police and Fire in Flat Rock. Google it. Mr. Pilkington.
Good evening, Craig Pilkington at South Point. Just a couple of brief questions. There was an open space article that was published both in the Old Camera and also appeared on the Township website several weeks ago that was authored by Cliff St. Pierre. Was the content of that article endorsed by the entire board?
No.
How was it approved to go onto the website?
It was, he's the chair of the commission. We knew we had some things that we would, a lot of it was more opinion than actual, what's the term I'm looking for, policy of the Open Space Commission. But I don't recall anything specifically contrary to any township policy. I don't recall offhand.
Okay, but
I read it a couple of times.
But it was not endorsed. The content was not endorsed by the board.
No.
Okay, very good, thank you. You had a study session on donated property earlier this evening, and I take it was real property, and I take it that Mr. Assorti was present at the meeting, and it was clarified, I think, just for me, that that's a voluntary transaction, rather than an involuntary transaction.
Yes,
Anybody donates property?
yes, it would be potential voluntary transactions.
Okay. And was there any discussion about getting a Phase 1 environmental done?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, very, very good, thank you very much. What is the amount in aggregate of the annual payroll for non-union employees?
Well, I don't have that in front of me, so...
Sir?
$983,000.
983,000. So you would potentially take 2% of that. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so we're looking at $18,000. And then if you were figuring that in the final asset calculation, considering that somebody maybe is fully vested, you take 80% of that, and then multiply that by, say, 20 or 25 years to come up with the aggregate amount of exposure that we're accepting. Would that make sense?
I mean, to some extent, I mean, the average retirement's probably 60%, 64%, not 80%.
So it's a significantly higher number in the aggregate, though,
Sure.
that the citizens of Grosse Ile are accepting when we look at these increases.
Sure.
Okay. And has our pension funding percentage gone up or gone down in the last couple of years?
The percentage has gone down through no inaction on our, they've changed the amortization schedule on a whim, I guess, for whatever reason, and that our funding ratio changed based primarily on the change of the amortization.
So we're about 68%? Is that right, from
That's without working, that's about.
Without the OPEB?
Yeah, that's about the number, yeah.
And our aggregate exposure in total, exclusive of what we've already got funded, is in the $43 million range.
I don't have that.
Okay, let me step in on a kind of a point of order here. Public comment, if you could, Craig, that's fine. I'll barrage a question. Let us know ahead of time, and we'll have the answers for you. But we're sitting here scrambling, and,
That's fine. You've been very receptive, and I appreciate it a great deal. Also, on this last comment that I just heard Tom make, you confirm that I didn't make that comment? Whatever comment you were talking about the Communication Commission?
You've lost me.
You made some remark about somebody took a shot at...
Somebody made a comment, online comment.
Okay.
The name was Factotum, and we followed that backwards.
I know who that is, yeah.
So
I just think,
but when you take a shot at this board, at the township, us individually, I don't have a problem with that. That's what we're here for. But when you take a shot at an employee, a cheap shot at an employee, not based on fact, you just want to be mean, that's where I take issue.
Okay, well, I think I know who Factotum is, and I didn't read the remark. But I think we're way outside of probably our bounds and scope of authority and publishing to the citizens of Grosse Ile that they cannot make.
Oh, you're more than welcome to make a comment.
Yeah.
My issue was you took a cheap shot, not you.
Yeah.
Is that an individual took a cheap shot at our employees, and I find that distasteful.
Understand.
And that was my whole point. No more, no less. It was a bad act on their part.
Okay. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Pilkington. Other comments from the public present? All right, with that offered, those in favor, in fact, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Bevy, seconded by trustee Posias. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. I'll call the meeting adjourned at 9:20. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. Thank you for watching at home. We got a lot of work done.